So I want to compare this to the Judy Garland version of this song. Totally different vibe.
They say I'm crazy, got no sense, but I don't care. They may or may not mean offense, but I don't care. You see, I'm sort of independent. I am my own superintendent, and my star is on the ascendant. That's why I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what they may think of me. I'm happy-go-lucky. They say that I'm plucky.
So the way I kind of get the vibe of this Judy Garland version, this kind of twisted feminist idea of not being well behaved, right? She's acting all goofy and whatnot, just acting goofy for goofy's sake. You know what I'm saying? Whereas the original Eva Tanguary song, just from going off pictures, where she's kind of probably not the most beautiful, maybe even like compared to someone like Judy Garland. It's bad quality, guys. I'm sorry about that. I can't help that. But compared to someone like Judy Garland, who Judy Garland's been probably handed everything in her life. She started off, from what I understand, she started off making films very young. Or someone like Eva Tanguary, maybe pushed to the forefront for evil, but she gives a vibe of, despite being kind of not the ideal, right? The ideal feminism, the ideal feminist, I mean, not feminist, the ideal feminine. She still has this air of I'm gonna walk to the beat of my own drum without the minus what other women think about me. I don't need feminism. Feminism is horseshit. I don't know. It's the vibe I get just from the pictures of her. I don't know. It's weird. Because she's not, like I said, she's not the most good looking. She's kind of trollish, kind of Shrek, kind of Shrekish, but still has this good attitude of, I don't care what you think. I'm gonna do my own thing. Even in the song itself, it doesn't sound like she's berating her audience like Judy Garland is.
Me, but now when fellas wink at me,
see that part right there.
When fellas used to blink at me, I'd freeze them and they'd shrink at me. But now when fellas wink at me, I wink at them right back. I don't care. I don't care. No doubt about it. I'll sing and I'll shout it.
She's like berating men and berating her audience, right? That's the vibe I've always gotten from this version. Whereas Eva Tanguary is just singing about herself. She's all about herself in a way, you know? That she don't care. She doesn't even care what other guys think, what other women think. Maybe these crazy neo-feminists, what they think.
And now, our feature presentation.
It's the singing donut, man.
Reality, captured in user-friendly symbols and processed for understanding.
Alright guys, what's up? Um, I was actually going to focus on one thing this presentation, but after going through my notes, I kind of decided that I guess I'll make another variety show because I got a couple of things I want to talk about. Um, so last night, my wife and my child and I, my daughter and I, we watch Wizard of Oz like every year around this time, and I like the movie a lot. Okay, despite the crazy Masonic imagery and stuff, and I don't really want to talk about that. I want to talk about other things that I noticed, kind of crazy things that I noticed. Just to get right into it, I think most people should be familiar with Wizard of Oz. So, I mean, the freaking movie's almost 100 years old by this point, like 1939, like it's an old movie by this point, which still holds up very well. It's kind of interesting. Um, maybe that's just me who finds this more interesting, but the um, the mere fact that a movie from almost 100 years ago, and for the most part, um, the language is kind of the same. They got different little sayings and stuff that you kind of have to look up every now and then to get a better understanding on. But for the most part, English from 100 years ago is basically still the same. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who thinks that's weird. That's weird, but 100 years isn't really that long, right? Um, I don't know. I don't know what the point of me saying that was. It's just something I find weird every now and then when I think about it. Maybe I'm just a smooth brain in that way. So to get into it, um, the way the plot begins, right, with what's that lady's name? Elmira Gulch? Yeah, that lady. And supposedly she owns a good chunk of the land in the area they're from, like that part of Kansas. So the movie kicks off with Elmira chasing Dorothy, and her dog, Toto. And as the movie goes on a little bit, come to find out that the dog bit her. And the reason the dog bit her is because Elmira was trying to protect her cat from Toto. So right off the bat, boom, we got a cat in the movie that I never even really thought about before. It's like, oh my God, like this movie started off like the whole plot kicked off because a cat was involved in some way and a dog was involved too, right? But it's like the story begins with a cat that's chased by a dog. Dog bites Elmira Gulch. They called her something else in the movie, I forget what. But mean old Miss Gulch or something like that. Bitten by Dorothy's dog, and they don't mention the cat in the plot, obviously, because they don't give a fuck about cats. But nevertheless, the movie starts off with a cat, and the story plays out. Blah blah blah. Dorothy wants to protect her dog, so she runs away. Meets what's his name? Professor Marvel, I think is the name. I'm not gonna look it up. I don't really care. Actually, I'm looking at the Wikipedia. Just read it. Yeah, Professor Marvel. That's it. He's a charlatan fortune teller, which nobody really talks about this either. But he he tells Dorothy to close her eyes because he realizes that she's a runaway. So he's trying to get her to go home essentially without telling her to go home to make it like it's her idea. So he tells as she's gonna read her fortune, so he tells her to close her eyes. He goes through her basket and finds a photo of a farm. Uses that as a kickoff point to start telling her fortune. So he tells her fortune, saying, not her fortune, but he does a little reading or whatever, basically saying, I see a picket fence and a farm and blah blah blah, and I see a woman who's really sad about something, and she's like, oh my God, Dorothy's like, oh my God, she's sad about me running away. I made Aunt Em sick or whatever. So they call him a charlatan here, and maybe that's true, but he persuades Dorothy to go home because Aunt Em is heartbroken, and that's what he was using his sneakery, right? His sneakiness to kind of trick Dorothy into going home, and that kicks off the plot as well. So no one really talks about how the Professor Marvel was a good guy in that situation. We just kind of take it as a oh, he's just like a kind of a bad guy in a way. kind of ripping off people, being this fortune teller guy, but I don't know, just something I want to mention. So as the movie progresses, and I'm just going to kind of talk about the movie as it happens. So the house falls on the Wicked Witch of the East. Um, and from what we're told, as the movie kicks off and progresses, that the Wicked Witch of the West is a bad person. And as the movie's playing out, I'm going like, okay, what is the what has the Wicked Witch of the West done so far that's been kind of bad or evil? And she's kind of just terrorizing the group, right? The one time where she's gonna set the Scarecrow on fire, she doesn't even aim for him. She kind of aims to the side, just to scare him. They freak out and all that. And so far, like throughout the whole movie, the Wicked Witch doesn't really do anything evil. We just take it for granted. We take this bitch Glinda's word at her word that what a bitch girl Glinda. Duh. And she presents herself as a good witch because bad witches are ugly. Good witches are beautiful, right? Like her. And it's funny because right off the bat I said as we're watching the movie she said she's like, I'm a good witch and only bad witches are ugly, and I said I beg to differ. Knowing what I know now about people. The looks can be deceiving and all that. All y'all know this, all right? So, but in the public subconscious, right? They kind of get this idea of the good witch, not the good witch, but the good mother figure. You know, so we take it like the information we're given, the information that Dorothy's given, also is like kind of weird. It's like she just takes it at face value about what Glinda says about the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wicked Witch of the East, that there are just these evil people with no real evidence. She just takes it at face value because she looks like a good witch, quote unquote. So it's kind of bullshit. Like spoilers. it's it's kind of bullshit the way the movie starts, but it's a kids movie, right? So well, it's made for everybody, I guess. It's a family movie. Let's put it that way. So and also what really annoys me about this movie is that Dorothy was put into this situation against her free will. And you can argue that it's just a dream, right? But let's take the characters for what they are. And it was Glinda who put Dorothy in this situation because from what we know, the Wicked Witch just wanted her sister's shoes back because they were hers or they were her sister's. She just wanted them back. So Glinda pulls off shenanigans, puts the slippers on Dorothy without her permission. You know, um, completely violating this girl, if you want to think of it that way. So, and Dorothy's a young girl, right? She trusts the mother figure, she trusts the adult, she trusts the good witch, so she just goes along with it, right? And it's like she was thrust into this situation. She was thrust into this antagonistic relationship with the Wicked Witch of the West. And the Wicked Witch of the West probably wouldn't have bothered her at all if she didn't have the slippers. She just wanted the slippers, right? So, again, the Wicked Witch of the West, she just wants her property back, all right? It's kind of goofy the way I'm taking this movie too seriously, but we gotta, I don't know, I was just dissecting this movie as it was going along, and it's like, this movie's kind of fucking awful in a way. Like the lessons it's trying to teach people about how it depends on your looks and whatever, and Glinda's ulterior motives were just awful. Like, Glinda was just antagonizing the witch the whole time, essentially, in essence, and kind of put this young girl into this situation. She put Dorothy into this situation that she might have not wanted to be in to begin with. She just wanted to go home, you know? But this is all happening in Dorothy's mind, right? This is all psychological. She meets the straw man, the scarecrow to begin with that has no brains. She meets and these are, to me, like she meets the Tin Man and the Lion, and these are the masculine archetypes, right? The masculine archetypes. You can think of it as Carl Jung refers to it as the animus, which is the masculine. The anima would be the feminine. So Glinda, Glinda and the witch, Wicked Witch of the West, represents the anima, which is the female drive, that feminine energy that drives everybody, even men, drives men and women. And Dorothy that's Dorothy's anima, and these masculine figures would be Dorothy's animus, like the Wizard of Oz, for instance, and um what's his name, Professor Marvel. So Professor Marvel, um the Tin Man, the Straw Man, and the Lion represent her masculine archetypes. You know, the anima, the animus, sorry, the animus archetypes, and the Wicked Witch and um Glinda represent the anima. All right, so masculine and feminine. That's what's going on in Dorothy's head. That's what this movie represents, in my opinion. Without getting into, like I said, the Masonic symbolism, the 911 symbolism, and all that, the emerald green and the ruby slippers, or how it represents capitalism in some way. It's like I don't give a fuck about that. I'm thinking about spirituality. Okay, so you could think of the straw man. You know, the first person she encounters. You know, she's gathering up party members, right? So our first party member, we got the scarecrow, which is the straw man. You can that represents Jesus Christ, in my opinion. just to be uh just to be a Christian asshole about this. My hands are cold, so I'm typing very slow today. So you got the straw man, Jesus Christ figure, right? And you could think of Jesus Christ as, um, I guess like sort of the uneducated. There we go. So you could think of the straw man as sort of the everyman, right? Uneducated people like me and you, right? I'm not saying y'all are stupid. I'm saying like to the elites, right? We're considered the dummies, or considered the people who just don't know any better, right? And that's Jesus Christ, all right? So Jesus Christ represents that as well, where he's kind of the everyman, even though people see him as a messiah. I think that's um I think that's kind of ridiculous in a way, because Jesus Christ just represented the average person in a way, who who's maybe uneducated, who just kind of observes life for what it is and points out the nonsense, right? And the scarecrow wasn't that deep in the movie, but he really represents like kind of like the bumbling version of the man, right? The kind of the weak, maybe not weak, but kind of the weaker, not as masculine male. And we got the lion, of course. Um, so we got the lion, and the Tin Man would be maybe like the hard worker. And these all, to me, these all represent like the workers, right? The masculine, kind of hard working men. So we got the Tin Man and the lion, who is masculine, right? He's got the outward appearance of masculinity, but inside he's a little more feminine. He's a little more in touch with his feminine side. Oh look, there's the pistol. Hey Matt, there's your pistol. Matt's brought this up before, where they had the little bug spray and the net. I don't know what this is about. This is weird to me. I always wonder if maybe it's a director's cut, like a director's cut of why they have these items. See, the Tin Man has a wrench along with his axe, and Scarecrow has a revolver. And I remember this, by the way, as a kid. I remember thinking, like, why does Scarecrow have a revolver? Like, why do they have all this stuff all of a sudden? It's so weird. But this isn't a mallet. It's a bug sprayer, like a one of them like cartoon bug sprayers. I've seen them in cartoons before. This thing, yeah, that thing, sorta, more or less, more or less what that is. I don't know why. It's super weird. I have a feeling they just grabbed a bunch of props and be like, let me get this revolver. I don't know. Scarecrow gets the revolver for some reason. Ain't no telling what that means, but the bug net is really goofy. I don't know. It's a goofy scene, right? This movie's fun. Okay, I like this movie a lot. It's fucking it's just a blast to watch every time, because there's always crazy shit in it that I notice. To get back on it, so I think I covered that. I think y'all get it when I say that Dorothy's a young lady, right? Maybe pre-menstrual, maybe she hasn't gone through her menstrual cycle yet. She's not into womanhood, but she's discovering her womanhood, right? So she's got her archetypes that she clings on to, them. What she her precepts, right? I talk about precepts all the time, where she sees what she sees masculinity as and what she sees feminine as. And The feminine side is Glinda in the Wicked Witch of the West, which is it's warped, right? It's twisted because Glinda had ulterior motives, and the Wicked Witch of the West just wanted her shoes back. So she wasn't really wicked. She was just doing her thing. Kind of at the beginning of the beginning with the fuck's her name? I already forgot her name. The antagonist lady, Elmira. Yeah, Elmira Gulch. Same thing with Elmira Gulch. Like she got bit by a dog. Toto, this little shit right here, keeps chasing her cat, right? And she just wants the dog to leave her cat alone, leave her property alone. And then she bit her, and that was the breaking point. It's like, look, I'm getting the sheriff involved. I'm getting this dog destroyed, and that's what kicks off the movie. And of course, Dorothy's a dog nutter, so Dorothy's a classic dog nutter. So it's like she's like, oh, I'm gonna protect my pupper. It's like my pupper's innocent. And you're a wicked old lady or whatever. The Wicked Witch, and Elmira Gulch was just looking out for herself. She was just protecting her property, protecting her cat. All right, like Elmira Gulch wasn't the villain. And that's one thing people don't understand. They just see her as a nasty old lady. She's marvelous, by the way. I love this fucking actress so much in this movie. It's so good. I was just watching her like, oh my god, this actress is amazing. Like, there's a part where Glinda is like, you need to get out of here. Basically, you have no power here. It's like you have no power here. Obviously, like you tell the not no, you have no power here. Well, you better leave before somebody drops a house on you. And she does this thing where she looks up, and it's so funny. I don't know. I found that so charming and endearing. I was like, oh my god, this lady's amazing. What an amazing actress. Like these actors and actresses are fucking fantastic. Um, Dorothy, the girl who plays Dorothy. What the fuck's her name? Uh, I forget her name. It don't matter. It'll probably show it here. Uh, Judy Garland. Yeah, that's it. Judy Garland. Man, ain't no telling. Man, she died at 47. That's crazy. I think she died of an overdose. Look that up real quick. But Judy Garland, put on the forefront, right? Not Milk, kind of creepy. Ain't no telling what happened to her as a child. These Hollywood actresses and actors have a tendency to attract creeps. Not attract, but it's not their fault, right? But I'm saying like the creeps, well, will do a gay icon. There we go, man. Garland, wow, I didn't know about this. Garland had a large fan base in the gay community and became a gay icon. What the fuck? Reasons given for standing among gay men are the admiration of her ability as a performer, the way her personal struggles mirrored those of gay men in the United States during the height of her fame, and her value as a camp figure. What the fuck's a camp figure? So she's a gay icon among gay men. That don't surprise me at all. Of course she is. Oh gosh, what am I looking at? I guess this is talking about different camps. Like the truthers, right? They got different camps as well. Maybe. I'm not gonna read this. I don't give a fuck. Anyway. So that's interesting. How did she die? Barbiturate overdose? Class of depressant drugs that can be used to treat a variety of conditions and can also be highly addictive and dangerous. Okay. So she died from an antidepressant overdose. Alrighty. So she died at 47. So she was born in 22. So 39. So she was 17 when this movie came out. She was 17 in that movie. She was only 4'11". Wow. Oh, okay. That makes sense why she always played like children. But I don't know what her, you know what, it don't matter. So to get back into it, so the movie plays out, right? Wicked Witch is just trying to get her shit back. And the worst thing she did by this point is lock Dorothy up in a tower, and she tells her that she'll die when this little, what is it called? What are those things called? Timekeeper. I forget the name of it. Hourglass, that's it. So she has a big old giant comical hourglass. It tells her that she'll die when this hourglass expires, when it's up. There's a comical sized hourglass right there. So she flips it around, Dorothy's all freaked out and terrified. So far that's the worst thing she's done, and she never elaborates why she'll die or how she'll die. As far as I know, it's like you don't even know what's gonna happen, dude. But you know our three heroes are guided by the dog to find Dorothy. So they find her, they save her, and just as the hourglass is about to um have its last, its last little sand or whatever it's called. Um, so they save her, and from there they get surrounded by the guards and the witch. And this is the last thing the witch does, which is um set her broom on fire and come at the scarecrow. Right, sets the scarecrow's arm on fire, and that was literally like the worst thing she did up until her death. Dorothy splashes water on her. Y'all know the rest. She melts in the ground, and our heroes get the broom for the wizard. So they take it to the wizard, find out he's a charlatan, just like Professor Marvel, and he gives his big old speech, and the speech was very interesting as well. So I'm not gonna play this whole clip. I mean, I'm not gonna play this clip. I don't know if I'm gonna have issues with copyright.
I'm a very good man. I'm just a very bad wizard.
What about the heart that you promised Tin Man? And the courage that you promised Cowardly Lion?
And Scarecrow's brain. Why, anybody can have a brain. That's a very mediocre commodity. Every pusillanimous creature that crawls on the earth or slinks through slimy seas has a brain. Back where I come from, we have universities, seats of great learning, where men go to become great thinkers. And when they come out, they think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. But they have one thing you haven't got, a diploma. Therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Universitatis Comitiatum e Pluribus Unum.
So he hands him a diploma, right, and basically tells him, and this is how I interpreted it. There's multiple ways to kind of see this, but he basically tells him that, like, he basically says, I know scholars and very smart people that go to university who have no more brains than you, right? They're no more intelligent than you. That's how I interpreted that. But in order to pacify the scarecrow, he hands him a diploma. Basically kind of reinforcing this idea that he needs accolades, he needs material in order to kind of just to have faith in himself in a way. Like, he's so focused on IQ or intelligence that he doesn't understand, like, the scarecrow doesn't see that he's capable. But as soon as he gets a diploma, it's like, oh yeah, like, yeah, give me that. You know what I mean? Like, now I'm a smart guy. So you have a lot of people like that in the world. And the scarecrow, like I said, scarecrow kind of represents the everyman person, the everyday person. So same with the Tin Man. He gives him a big old speech about how here, let's go and play it.
Well, you can't. As for you, my fine friend, you're a victim of disorganized thinking. You are under the unfortunate delusion that simply because you run away from danger, you have no courage. You're confusing courage with wisdom. Back where I come from, we have men who are called heroes. Once a year, they take their fortitude out of mothballs and parade it down the main street of the city. And they have no more courage than you have. But they have one thing that you haven't got, a medal. Therefore, for meritorious conduct, extraordinary valor,
so again, the lion who confuses he says basically you're confusing your cowardice for wisdom. Like, you know when to run away from a fight or whatever. But the lion won't see it this way until he's handed material, some kind of accolade, again, with these accolades. And to me, this is the symbolism. Same with the Tin Man. He basically talks about, from here, I'll just give a too long didn't read version, the wizard speaks about philanthropists and how there's a lot of good and moral people out there who have hearts because of their deeds, right? So the Tin Man, has heart, right? Because he's got his good deeds, his morality's in the right place, essentially. But again, he's not convinced of it until, this is a magenta. Hold on. Let's find it. Oh no, it flashed magenta for a second. I lost it. Anyway, he's not convinced until he's handed an accolade, right? Something physical, something material. This is all spiritual, y'all. Like, these three idiots don't realize. There we go. There it is. These three idiots don't realize that. There's a magenta. Um, these idiots don't realize that it's all spiritual. It's not about physical. It's not about material. It's about what's going on in the mind. Like they're convinced by the world. The world is telling them that you don't have a heart. You're a tin man. You don't have courage. You know, you're a cowardly lion. Like on the outside you're manly, but inside you're a coward. And the scarecrow, it's like you don't have any brains. You're useless to society because you don't have a diploma. And at the very end, they're convinced of this as well. It's like, oh, now I have a diploma. Now I'm the smarty pants, right? I could spout off a mathematical equation, you know? It's fucking ridiculous, y'all. So this movie's kind of twisted in that way, but to me that's what this shit means towards the end. And to top it all off, I've already spoiled it a few times, but um the cat at the end. So at the very end of the movie, um I keep wanting to call him Dr. Marvel or Dr. Marvel. I keep wanting to call him Professor Marvel. The wizard, he's Professor Marvel, okay? That's what he is. So at the end, the professor, the wizard, is going to take Dorothy up into a balloon to Kansas, right? The star. Here's the thing with the Munchkin song. The Munchkins called Kansas a star. Very, very crazy the way they called it that. 'Cause from their perspective, the house came down from a falling star, you know, and killed the Wicked Witch of the East. So to them, Kansas is a star. So in the movie, the professor is going to take Dorothy to her home, which would be the star, right? Sun, God, Ra, whatever, whatever you want to call it. There's symbolism in that, okay? Could be Sirius the dog star for all we know, since there's a fucking dog in it. But so at the end, as they're getting on the balloon, Toto notices the cat and starts barking at it. That's what kicked off this movie, y'all. Was a cat kicked off the movie, and a cat ended the movie. So they miss the balloon. The balloon takes off. The professor says, "I can't stop it once it gets going. See y'all later." And then Glinda comes in. That stupid bitch. Glinda comes in. Where is she? Here we go. Glinda comes in her little bubble. Her little bubble that she couldn't lend to Dorothy, by the way. It's like, hey, give her that bubble magic and we can fly to the. But she had to go on the journey, right? I get it. And in her mind, the psychological nature of it. In her mind, she has to go on this journey where she follows a yellow brick road and meets all these characters. She meets the masculine, right? She has to get in touch with her masculine as a young lady. So Glinda shows up in her little bubble and basically says the power was within you the whole time. You had the ruby slippers. All you had to do was click them 3 times. And I'm thinking like this bitch could have just told her that from the beginning. And that's what Dorothy says. Like, hey, bitch, you could have told me that from the beginning. And Glinda was like, you wouldn't have believed me, which is true. Like, she wouldn't have believed him. Like, you can tell, like, for instance, you can tell your family all day. You can tell your family all day about how politics is fake, or how this reality isn't what it seems it is, or the reality is a black mirror or a void, or reality is all in the mind, it's all psychological. You can tell them that all day long, and they'll never believe you. Right, baby? Hey, baby. Baby's looking at me. You can tell that to them all day, and they'll never ever believe you. They have to witness it for themselves, and that's the story of Dorothy. Dorothy had to witness these events. She had to go through this journey on her own. That's the story of Buddha, right? Again, with the story of Buddha, like she had to witness this on her own. She had to see this for herself in order to have a Satori. And that was Dorothy's Satori at the end. She had to experience all this firsthand before she realized that the power was within her. And they still put the power on the ruby slippers, so they still try to link it to material, which Dorothy probably didn't even need the slippers. I really wish they would have said something like that, but you know, the ruby slippers is iconic and all that. That's the message they want to get through. So she clicks her heels and goes home. She wakes up in her bed, right? She was in a kind of a coma sort of thing, and all of her masculine figures are there at the end. Let's see. So here we go. Here it is, dude. This is it. This is all her masculine figures. Like there was no representation for what's his name? The uncle. I forget his name. But there's Aunt Emily. So there's all her masculine figures, right? And the feminine was already within her. Okay, that's the animus. These characters represent the animus. So she wakes up and immediately sees her masculine figures that were in her dream. So she experienced her little satori, and it was all instigated by the cat. It was all on purpose, for a purpose. This is gonna sound like a stretch, okay? But the movie ended with a cat and began with a cat. The alpha and the omega, right? So that's what caught my attention. The cat at the very beginning. They didn't show the cat at the very beginning, but at the end they showed this Siamese cat. I was like, oh my god, they're literally showing a fucking cat to end this movie. Which is like that's how she realized that the power was in her, right? Because she missed the balloon because of this cat. It was the cat's fault for antagonizing the dog or whatever, right? The stupid dog's gonna chase anything anyway. But so that's it, y'all. Um, that's gonna end the Wizard of Oz section of this talk. Holy shit, fucking 30 minutes. This is gonna be its own separate video. I might just make it its own separate video. I don't know yet. So that's it, Wizard of Oz. Go rewatch it. Everybody needs to go rewatch it, knowing what you know about reality, knowing what you know about the Not Milk. Every single one of you need to go rewatch this movie, and let go of the stupid, not let go of the not milk aspect. You don't have to, right? Let go of the Masonic thing, the Masonic symbolism and all that. Just let let all those precepts go. Let's talk about my community post from golly 7 months ago. That's crazy. Which I talked about this kind of recently too, but it was a very small part of that video, so I'll get into it a little bit here. Where I speak about Pokemon Fire Red, where this guy beats it blind and deaf using an algorithm, and I'm probably just gonna mute this, but um, and I've talked about this with Kirk a little bit, where we kind of take it for granted that we understand how RPG mechanics work. Um, so this isn't something I can just show anybody and be like, hey, this is how the reality works, herdy derp. It's something that maybe only someone like me or someone like Kirk could understand, or someone familiar with how video games or RPGs work, okay? But I don't think it's that esoteric or obscure. So this guy figured out in essence how to beat the game blind and deaf. Just using simple button presses. You can see it here, simple button presses.
Then used to buy 2 important prizes.
Put the volume very low. So using simple button presses to beat the game and to consider every possible outcome with a predetermined team and all that. And it's a very, very small margin for error to beat it every time. You just run the algorithm, it'll beat the game every time, despite the random number generator aspect, RNG aspect, the random aspect, dice rolls. These games run on dice rolls, okay? The simplest way to think about it is every action in battle, or every action, maybe not every action, but every other action in battle or in the game is determined by a dice roll, and that's the random nature of it. That's what determines the random nature of it. Or in this case, it's called a random number generator. And a lot of games are like this, okay? A lot of games operate on these RNG mechanics. And at the very end, I don't have to play too much to really drive the point home.
Using the start menu to avoid moving means
So I'll play this, and it kind of explains it better a little bit, where he uses the start menu to manipulate button presses in the multiple scenarios.
I won't know what option the cursor is on. If I want to open my bag later, I won't be able to navigate to it under these conditions. To fix this, all I have to do is position myself above a wall, and then open the start menu and press down A, B over and over again. Doing this 6 times in a row guarantees that the cursor will be on exit the next time I open the start menu. The second caveat is that whether or not you can run away is dependent on your speed stat. If you're faster than the enemy, then you get away. All I have to do is
Just to explain a little bit, this is one controller. You can think of this as one controller kind of controlling, quote unquote, multiple games. Or has the potential to control multiple games. And to me, to get back into it, this is what multiverse is like. And multiverse doesn't exist. It's always a multiverse always kind of condenses into one universe or one verse. So here,
high base speed means we usually move first. Also, unlike wild Pokemon and Gift, the math says that using a potion.
so you can think of this as multiple possibilities in one game with one controller input. And this is what, to me, this is what multiverse is possibly every moment of our existence. And it's actually really simple. So, because this is just a 2D game, okay? With basic, like really basic controller inputs.
In both of these scenarios.
So here you can see, you can think of this as a potential for multiverse where different scenarios are going on in each of these individual potential scenarios.
I can use Thunderbolt in all
And
these
at the
scenarios,
end,
but I might get flinched. Though in the other scenario, there's
so eventually,
it's bound to
back
affect
up.
the other scenarios.
So eventually, after everything's consideration, very basic button presses for it to converge into one universe. Let's just show this off really quick. These are all the inputs you use to beat every possible scenario in Pokemon Fire Red. But this is all the code, rather. I'm gonna fast forward into 230,000 inputs. For one game of Pokemon Fire Red, beating every outcome, right? So I showed y'all how it converged at the end. I think that's clear enough. So I use this as a metaphor. As I was watching this, I was like, oh my god, this is like the perfect metaphor for the paradoxes of, let's say, Mandela effects or retrocausality and how it all converges into one. Like I say here, this video has nothing to do with metaphysics, but it's a super interesting showcase of how one person manages to problem solve using simple logic algorithms and button presence to play a game of Pokemon Fire Red, Deaf, and Blind. Considering all possible outcomes and paradoxes, any and all possibilities are considered and paradoxes are resolved via simple button inputs. And that's my point. Like, we think this reality is complicated when it's probably really not. Because I want you to think about this game for a second. It's a very simple RPG, 2D, top-down perspective, 2D game with very basic controls. Our reality, all right, is time-based. I forget the exact name for it. 4D, 3D, time-based, reality. And we think it's complicated because we're living in it, but it's probably not to an outside force. Like, to an outside force, this may as well look like this to them, where it's very simple controls, very simple interface, very understandable mechanics, and mechanics that can be broken, okay? And this, you can think of this as our higher selves in a way, putting these basic input outputs in, where we control the outcomes, we control the paradoxes, we solve the multiverse with very simple algorithms. But from our perspective, let's take these little video game characters, for instance, like these little characters in the game, to them, it's probably complicated, right? Let's pretend that they're alive. They're little people in the game, right? Who are taking this seriously. They think this world is real. They think these Pokemon are real. And they take life very seriously. But they don't realize how simple it is, you know? And that's kind of my point of that. So to start a simulation, Billy, he proposed a question: how in the world do we figure out how to formulate codes or inputs that would allow us to navigate through? This makes sense to me abstractly or conceptually. I think I get it enough. But it's like it is like if there are actions we can take or inputs to place into this reality, and how do we do it? We are already doing it technically, but in a certain way that allows us to in a certain way that allows us to glide through based on what we would prefer. We would prefer an art studio making an arts and crafts full time or a decent place to live, the basics, and live on that moving forward until I exit this place. But I don't know, it's something to consider. Like, you don't know that for, I guess, talking to Billy, I don't know if he watches anymore, but you think you want that in this reality, but your higher self knows what you want already or what you need already. And you have to kind of go with the flow in a sense. And here I talk about the things I've just talked about. The things I found most compelling about this video is how simple it was. Simple button presses at the right time fixed multiverse timelines that created synchronicity so that a problem could be solved. I don't think our reality is as complicated as people think, and the theory of the multiverse may be true, but all universes have to stretch and converge, eventually bringing all of our realities together. I don't know, and you can kind of think of multiverse maybe as our own individual experiences, our own, like our own bubbles, our own reality solipsism bubbles. It's silly as hell for me because I got deeply emotional at the end of the video, like I had sudden weight lifted off my chest. It was strange. When all the timelines converged to solve the ending, I realized that it was a direct analogy for our reality that was being presented to me in order to see more clearly. It was as if I created that video and solved the paradox in order to show myself that it's possible. And I consider that as well. Where it's like maybe maybe I created that video in a way or manifested that video or somehow, you know, the artist susceptibility, where this guy, Mart Snack, I guess that's his name. This guy had the thought, right? He had the drive to make a video like this and to try it and to program it. And here I just talk about how I take it for granted that I understand RPG mechanics and stuff. So it's a weird metaphor to show other people. So right here I say the basic button presses on reality are beyond our control, but we're doing it. The cat fractal is something I definitely created, but by my suggestion, it's entering the lives of my audience. But it's only a suggestion, like a hypnotist has to relax his patient, making them more suggestible. Of course the cat fractal is there. I created it. And I've talked about that too, where it's going back in time. Like for instance, Wizard of Oz, it's like the cat and Wizard of Oz were 1939, almost 100 years ago, right? 90 years ago, 80 something years ago, the cat fractal was there to reveal, you know? I think I got my point with that. Move on to the next. Oh shit, I don't know if golly, this video is almost 50 minutes. I don't know if I want to go over this. This is gonna be insane.
Anything in return, and that's what I discovered for me.
That you think it's not degrading?
Yeah.
It's the opposite of degrading, you'd say?
Well, it depends on what the situation is, but I discovered a way that was not degrading, and I thought I need to tell people about this because.
And what is that way? Expand on that a little bit. What is that way that you can do it that's in not a degrading way?
Well, my first experience was only about my pleasure. The person didn't even expect anything in return, and that was empowering for me because I've been.
Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to speak about. This little section right here. The whole thing I'm gonna try to go over, but she talks about, let's play it again.
The person didn't even expect anything in return, and that was empowering for me because I.
So she claims that it was empowering for this person to only focus on her pleasure, and what this stupid idiot doesn't realize is that, and she's not with this person anymore, so I guess it don't matter, but this idiot, this is the problem, that she's a professional giving advice to other women. So she doesn't see this, she sees, her dumb little brain sees this as empowering when really this was about more about the control on the guy's end. Like he was obsessed with controlling her pleasure, right? That's probably why the relationship didn't work in the end, but she's too stupid to realize that. Let's talk about, see, what did I post here? Oh yeah, and here, now every partner after this person is going to be held to an unfair standard, the very same standard that she claims she dislikes that men were unfairly giving women. Absolute hypocrisy. It's also incredible she doesn't realize that the person who was all about her pleasure was really about themselves in the situation. It was a power trip. He didn't care about her pleasure at all, and he made her feel some phony empowerment. That's what I mean. She uses these, how do I, there we go, condense that. She uses these phony little buzzwords to make herself feel smart or empowered or professional or whatever.
I've been taught that sex was just for men's pleasure, or that it would be pressured out of me as a woman when I enthusiastically consented. So I would say empowering sex is enthusiastically consented to and focuses on your pleasure. Maybe not only on your pleasure,
That's crazy.
but at least it's part of the equation.
So
she's really, like naive, kind of infantile, and she's a professional, by the way. Like, she consults women about empowering themselves and being sexually liberated and all that. This is a dumb fucking advice she gives. Okay, move on.
Let me ask.
What happened to love?
That,
It sounds like you're like bending the rules to the female.
So did you totally
cheated.
forget about the man? That's the question. Did you totally forget about the man?
no, I just need to see that he's also interested in me, and then I want to please him too.
Okay. So did you date, or how does it work for you?
During a time in my life when that was the case, I had that on my dating app profile, actually.
That you were like, I'm down.
The words were looking for someone to make me come really hard, then lie next to me and talk about physics.
That's
Wow.
real?
Yes.
Oh, she was honest. She was honest, folks.
But
No.
Suzanne, it feels like you're totally cheating. Like you're bending the rules. Like you're saying the proper sexuality is, oh, when a man pleases me. Hey, what about us? What happened? What happened to love?
That,
It sounds like you're like bending the rules to the female.
So did you totally
cheated.
forget about the man? That's the question. Did you totally forget about the man?
no, I just need to see that he's also interested in me, and then I want to please him too.
Okay, I see. I see.
So, like I said here, a litmus test essentially. Don't shit test your boyfriend or girlfriend. That's actually awful. I think that speaks for itself. Let's
Things that make them happy.
see what this
In
is.
case you didn't know. But in general, I think there is a correlation, and research has proved this, between how frequently couples are having sex and how much they like the sex and how happy they are in their relationships. It helps them to connect, and it produces a lot of endorphins that make them happy.
Oh yeah, the endorphins thing. I hear this a lot in the dog community, where you petting a dog, it's releasing endorphins. That means that dogs are good. Same with this idiot. She's like, oh, you gotta, please your partner and all that, and be this sexual person, because it releases endorphins. And here I said you can release endorphins from eating a fucking Snickers bar. Which is true, you release endorphins over anything, man. Golly. This is what pisses me off when they bring up endorphins. It's like the hot buzzword, you know? It's like, oh, you play video games, it releases endorphins. You take a shit, it releases endorphins. You sit on the can or sit on the pot, take a shower, watch some TV. Maybe I should be watching TV all the time. Releases fucking endorphins. You know, it's kind of fun to read this before and then go to the timestamp, because it's been over a month since I watched this. So I kind of forgot what was in it. Let's read this. This isn't even about used goods by this point. She's come up with a ridiculous standard that most men aren't willing to put up with. Would she like to hear about how her potential husband has had this spectacular sex life before settling with her? Is she capable of empathy at all? This double standard is insane, and she refuses to the damage she's done to herself. Oh, she refuses to acknowledge the damage she's done to herself. Please don't have children, lady. And I can't really tell you I mean that. I kind of remember that. But let's go over it.
Don't like what?
Even
Keep.
Does body count matter?
Ah, the
I don't
ancient
think
question.
Quantity matters. I think quality matters. I think it's
They both
about,
matter, you dumbass.
have you chosen
We just talked about the good thing, right? Where the guy's only focused on her, and she's kind of ruined it for her future partners or future husband. Like this lady.
good people?
Let her talk.
Have you chosen people in situations where you felt safe and where you felt honored? If there were a lot of people who really made you feel safe and honored, then I don't think that's a bad thing.
Of course she doesn't. So she's really convinced of this. I don't know. She's not going to find a guy that's willing to put up with that, in my opinion. Even if the dude's like one of these kind of pussy whoop liberal types, they're not going to really deal with it either. They're going to be miserable, and eventually the relationship's going to fall apart because the standard is too high. She's had too many. Even if she's had 2 or 3 guys, right, and they were all quality, quote unquote, where I don't know, she orgasms every time or whatever the fuck she thinks is a good relationship. This new husband, has to live up to that, and guys do not want to put up with that. Like, reverse the situation. Any ladies listening, like, if you had a guy, golly, if you had a boyfriend or a fiance that just openly talked about his past women and how he had such amazing orgasms every time, or she gave the best blowjobs or whatever, Like, how would you feel about that? Do you realize how stupid and twisted this is? Like, am I the only one that sees it this way? Like, this woman has no respect for the people she's been with. She has no respect for herself. She has no respect for her future children or her future husband. She's just a mess. She's just a broken person. And a lot of people are like this. I'm not just picking on her. There is a lot of people that are like this. A lot of women that are like this. A lot of men too. Next encounter. Next encounter, like your body's in some used up New York subway system by now. Golly. All these fancy words to make yourself feel better. Yeah, pretty much. Oh boy, what does she say here?
Control.
Well, for the first question, well, the first thing he's saying is that sex is not important and it's only for control. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree with that. I think there are ways.
All right, pause. First of all, her whole gimmick is about sexual liberation and sexual empowerment. And you're gonna fucking piss on my face while I'm dunking my head in the toilet bowl full of shit at the same time by telling me that it's not about control. Are you fucking kidding me right now? We're moving on. All right, let's see what's going on here. Oh, I missed one. Let's see. Let's see what this is.
And that thought disgusts me. I
Right
think there are
on.
people who, I think there are a lot of people who would never do that. And I have never been with a man who, I mean, personally, I've had the higher sex drive in most of my relationships. So the idea that like they want sex and they're trying to get it out of me just doesn't resonate. Not saying all women agree with me, but I think more than you think do.
Yeah, okay.
But do you?
So man's never lied to you have sex?
No.
That you know of.
That's bullshit. Look. They may have never lied to get sex in the spot, lady. Maybe you don't realize this about people, but more than likely they lied to you to get in your space, to get in your periphery, right? To get in your personal space, meaning your apartment or your bedroom or your life or to get your phone number. They've lied about that, okay? This woman is, I don't know how to say this, like fucking either just naive or really, really gullible. Oh, they've never lied for me to sex. Yeah, maybe in the moment they're very upfront about when they wanted to fuck, but they've lied to get into your personal space. You're fucking retarded, lady. Stop giving people advice. This person's a professional. This is the person that is giving advice to other women. All men lie for sex, and yeah, they do. All right. Let's go over this.
Things should change.
Because
and
they
are
like to be
changing.
lied to.
It's a club where people go to have sex.
Oh, I believe that exists. But typically by default, women are not as open with their interest as men are. That's why men had to have lied in the first place. Wouldn't you agree?
Mm-hmm.
I think so, but I don't think it's because they aren't interested, and that's why I think things should change.
Because
and
they
are
like to be
changing.
lied to.
Yeah.
They like to be lied to. Because it makes them feel like
Joel's-
you're not such a hoe. Or
I like Joel a lot. He's kind of missing the point though about what I'm about to say.
not so open about it. Because they feel, because they have this what do you call that? This perception that when they do these things, they're an abomination to earth. That they're nasty, they're dirty, they're unworthy, right? So they don't want to be straight up about it because they're going to be seen as that. But even though they want it, so they want to pretend.
That's a really good point too. Let's get into what I was going to say though. I respect what Joel just said. That makes sense. But to get into it here, women are more secretive with their sexuality because the consequences for them screwing around are greater than that of a man. Ever heard of a thing called pregnancy? You know what's funny about this? Not once did they bring up STDs, they didn't bring up pregnancy, they didn't bring up anything like that. Women, girls get pregnant when they have sex, and that discussion is just completely missing from this whole video. This stupid bitch doesn't mention it once. She doesn't give a fuck. She's out for destruction. reading on. It's amazing that the topic never gets brought up. How many young women have you tricked and gaslit into this sort of twisted lifestyle? Pregnancy for women is a huge risk. Historically, like this modern age, we take it very, very much for granted that in the modern age, we have things like tampons, we have things like pregnancy tests, we have things like abortion pills or the Plan B pill, we have things like abortion, blah, blah, blah. We take it very, very for granted. In the past 80 years or so, 70 years, we've had that kind of technology to kind of give women this freedom that they weren't prepared for. These women, these girls, women aren't prepared for the freedom that they've been given from this modern technology. And I know a lot of women don't want to hear that. You can apply this to driving. You can apply this to working. You can apply this to so many other things that women historically, as a species, right? And I'm not trying to like degrade them into some kind of animal. What I'm saying is like historically, biologically, women aren't equipped for so many of these things, so many of these modern situations, like the open sex and all that, the freedom of whatever they think they're doing, and they're really only have freedom thanks to the allowances that men have given them. And same with I'm not gonna bring that up actually. Scratch that. I was gonna bring something else up, but I decided to not. We're talking about this right now, but the women's liberation, civil rights, so that kind of that's what I was gonna mention, civil rights. So it is linked to that. But there were allowed privilege and freedoms thanks to the men that were in charge at the time. But they don't see it that way, right? They're a bunch of dingbats, a bunch of idiots. They don't think about this kind of thing. And this stupid bitch that runs a profession, not once did she mention pregnancy or the risks for getting STDs or the risk for anything else, or the psychological harm, the spiritual harm, and all of that sex can cause. Not cause, but you get what I'm saying. Premarital, just kind of, and men got to be aware of this too. It's not just the women, but women are especially vulnerable to this.
No, I think that's
Why is that
more
one
when you've been with
specifically?
one. That's
Things get boring because of repetition. I mean, that's just logical.
Well, I meant specifically with one partner.
You think it might happen with other things?
Like what?
Like doing multiple pairs, it gets boring because of repetition.
I don't think, no, I think that's
Why is
more
that
when
one
you've been
I mean, you can ask pornography addicts, do they get tired of chronically masturbating?
with one person for a long time. I'm honestly not sure of that.
Oh, you know what? Low key, she was kind of shitting on monogamous relationships at the same time. So she can't imagine somebody getting tired of sex. But she's only I guess I didn't catch that before. She's talking about monogamous relationships, like pairings, like a married couple, for instance. So this lady this lady's a mess, man. So anecdotal story, I have a friend, my best friend from Texas, he's admitted he's had over 100 partners, and he said that it gets old. I can't ask him any questions right now about that, so I'll just leave it at that. All right, let's get into this.
Because you are blending together and it actually feels
false sense of joy, a false sense of excitement. But the true excitement and the true joy is within love, when we can get to that and overcome and understand that.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be a better route and then leave the sex alone, overcome that and
So what Joel's talking about is the spiritual awakening that the men and the husband and wife can both experience if they just get out of their head about the material and about the physical and about the sex and all that. And it's not just the sex part, it's about everything. It's about every addiction you can think of, the food, the obsession with cash, the obsession with material. That's what Joel's talking about. He said if men and women can overcome that, they'll find the true love and the true joy in life, where the man and the woman are actually on the same page when it comes to spirituality. That's what he's talking about. That's what he means by overcoming the sex. When he says overcoming the sex, he says overcoming all material things.
And grow up.
What if you can find ways to have sex that you feel like you're one with the other person and like it's the highest expression of your love because you are blending together.
It's the highest expression of her love, and how many people has she's given that to? I want you to think about that.
And it actually feels like beautiful love.
I think that sounds
You
good.
just
I
stop
don't think
it.
that's the reality.
Right. I think that
I don't want to see your partial O face during that little speech of yours, lady. Jesus Christ.
I think that everybody's selfish, and the sex thing is like pursuing selfishness and pleasure. And yeah, a lot of like sensible selfish people will try to please the other person and seem unselfish.
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
have
Hake nailed it, man. That's exactly it.
the sense to know that if I'm just openly selfish all the time, then it's not going to work necessarily, unless she likes me just being openly, shamelessly selfish.
And this stupid idiot right here doesn't realize she's been tricked by so many dudes. There's like, oh, I just want to pleasure you, right? Not knowing that she's really, really infantile in her mindset, where it's like, oh, they're just so giving and we're whatever she thinks. Like totally just being manipulated, right? And so stupid. Like so, these are the professionals, man. This is my point. It's like you have to really be aware of people like this who are just so naive about humans, about people.
Selfish.
Right.
But I agree with you that we should overcome it. And you mentioned the word pleasure a few times. I think we should overcome pleasure seeking and let it happen.
You know what's funny?
I think
I was watching
overcome it.
Hake.
And you
Very
mentioned
subtle.
the word pleasure.
Right there. He kind of reared back. I look at stuff like this all the time, guys. He looks at her. This is funny to me. He looks at her, he points at her, he rears back and goes back to speaking. I don't know if he's just trying to get a better look at her, right? You know how people like you're trying to be social, so you look at the person, right? And he backs up to get a better look at her, but to me it was kind of a rearing back like, this lady right here. I don't know, I'm probably just projecting that, but the way he leans back. Oh man, that gave me a giggle.
Word pleasure a few times. I think we should overcome.
He's kind of leaning back too, like this gap right here. It's like he's leaning in this way the whole time. Does he do that through the whole thing? Kinda. He kinda does it. I think they're a pretty good space. Like I don't think he's that uncomfortable. He's not really that uncomfortable, but it is kind of funny.
Seeking and let
But
it.
you got Joelle kind of sitting straight up. Nick is kind of leaned back, but he's the one. Hake is the one who's kind of a little nervous, kind of body language, kind of lean into his right a little bit.
Happen or not, because life works better when, in the midst of life, in the drudgery of life, and dealing with conflicts with different people, you can be calm and sensible and not selfish in that and overreacting. And then the pleasure sometimes comes and goes, and you're not attached to that and not attached to pleasure seeking.
Right.
So you're not.
Like the pleasure is not so important.
That's a higher expression of love, is to be selfless with the woman, even when she's being a B word or whatever, or he's whatever. That's like a more important, a key aspect of love is not hating the person when she's hating you or whatever.
Do you agree with that?
I think that
If I were to guess, you don't really understand the question.
it's important to learn to channel your sexuality
Yep.
into loving
He's talking about something completely different.
encounters and not be attached to pleasure seeking for its own sake, but rather to be in control of when you express that part of yourself. But I think there are ways, I mean, if
But
you're
she seems out of control, you know?
drawing from the Bible, what about the Song of Solomon? Isn't that about a sexual relationship that's beautiful and loving?
Well,
I skipped that book. No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
I just want to say one last thing is that like there's another part, and I'm not exempt for any of this stuff, whatever, but there's another aspect of life that.
Yeah, and right here I talk about the highest expression of your love, and what about your future partners or your future husband, the father of your children? If you've already given away your highest expression of love to the man that isn't going to be the father of your children, how useless was that gesture? If you don't see the fallacy in this, there's no hope for you. You'll continue to double down on this psychobabble. And yeah, she will. She's gonna be one of these childless cat ladies, as JD Vance likes to say.
that is way more fulfilling and satisfying than the sex. I think
I think that covers that, guys. I might wrap it up here. Alright guys, I think I'm gonna end that here. I'll finish off with this a little bit, kind of a lo-fi thing. I know it's kind of cringe, but whatever. I think that covers everything I wanted to speak on. Y'all have a great day.